I'm Adora Nwofor, and welcome to Living a Creative Life, a true celebration of all of you folks inspiring us with your passion and authenticity. April is National Poetry Month. So let's find out why Calgary has such a strong reputation around the globe for poetry. Today, we clown around with an established poet.
And poetry's never a moneymaker anyways. The clown's always paid the bills.
Find healing through story.
You have to take care of your audience.
Join the Poet Laureate in the stacks and see poetry in action.
I never chose to be a poet. I fully believe poetry chose me.
All this and more on Living a Creative Life. If you're surprised to learn that Calgary is world-renowned for poetry, you're not alone. Many are unaware of our city's rich literary past and the writers who have paved the way. So this is the perfect excuse to explore our city's poetry scene through the eyes of a poet and clown. Or is it clown and poet?
The rush of a poem, it's like clowning for kids. It's just, there's the rush there that you can't deny. A seed, sure, dried out, maybe not ruined, something in there we cannot see or know. So much drama for such a tiny orb, and to think it made civilization, this tiger in a shell. Poetry, well, you can go anywhere. You've got this blank page and it can go anywhere. It's so visceral. We wonder why we like poetry readings as intimate. You can just hear the person's voice. There's no crowds like a rock concert. It's the opposite to a rock concert. It's so intimate. You're listening to the poet's, soul laid right bare. Those were fighting seeds with tails. Came with their own cave and wetness, then crowning from the uterus the little head. The shoot pokes out much slower, carrot, daisy, or oak, then screams at the sun. I was a silent seed. Now look at me. I live. I joined a theater company called One Yellow Rabbit, and I became a writer for them. I became a general manager for them. Once I got into poetry, once I got into writing for theater, I didn't look back. I've mentored tons of poets. And so that is really good part of the community, is it's very embracing. Back in the day, my parents would say, well, you'll never make a living at that. And back in their day, they were probably right. It is take some sacrifice. But I think you have to follow your heart, just absolutely, or else you won't be happy. And poetry's never a money maker anyways, it's the one that does not pay the bills. The clown's always paid the bills. Hamlet the Clown is a very traditional clown. Most of my show is classical stuff. A pin drop, for instance, where you drop the pins, keep dropping the pins before you actually juggle them. If your clown character really knows how to deal with it and knows how to deal with the audience, then you can make any old skit sing like it's brand new. I did a clown festival at Pump House, and I walk out and I didn't do anything. It's called a nothing turn, where you just come out and do nothing. And I got an immediate response, and I didn't do anything. So that kind of response, you just don't get that with poetry. You get polite applause from the audience after you finish the poem.
Let's chat with professional storyteller Mira Reyes to make the connection between words and healing.
Yo soy la tierra, yo soy el agua, yo soy la...
Can you tell me a little bit of how you became a storyteller?
I stumbled across a storytelling symposium in Sussex, England. He was a South African storyteller. His name is Malcolm Green, and he came out on stage with his drum, and he started telling stories, and it just paralyzed me. The guy just made me laugh, he made me cry, like he moved me. This is the story of how the world was created. So in order for a story to be therapeutic, it needs to embrace that, give and heal. So so the intention is the first. The second one is you have to take care of your audience. And the third is you need to always bring them to a safe place. This woman, she came out from the water, and she was giant and mighty. She's powerful. What we give to the audience and to our patients or the group we're working with or whomever we're working with is we're restoring the rhythm in their system and in life. And also we're giving them a safe space. So the safe space starts with once upon a time, but you know that it is going to end. So it's safe.
It's so beautiful that so many of these creative things can be layered together.
That if you're really, 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 really quiet at night, if you're careful, you may still listen to the screams of the hungry woman asking for food. And this is my story.
Mira, it has been such a beautiful experience for me to learn and connect with you today.
Yo soy el agua, yo soy Newa, Newa.
This is called Run to the Stacks. Is your roof fallen in and your world close on top? Literal roof, metaphorical world, you choose till you can't. Have you been lashed by tongues or by rain with jagged, scalding words, words that wound, slipped and split through the lips of beloveds or strangers? Then my best advice is run.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Natalie Meisner.
Thank you. So pleased to be with you.
What is a Poet Laureate?
So the Poet Laureate has a couple different functions. One of them is to be an ambassador for the power of the written word, the power of the spoken word. What I wanted to do is also send the message that anybody has access to poetry. So yeah, I am a prof and a poet, but I didn't start out here. If your fingers are grubby, be not ashamed. Others have left their prints here first. Don't begrudge them. Jealousy is the chiefest enemy of desire. First, take history to cope with the fact that humans ruin everything and people are the worst, except on those rare halcyon days when we're the best.
What do you hope to give the next Poet Laureate? And what has the Poet Laureate before you given you?
The Poet Laureate and all the Poet Laureates before me have given me a sort of responsibility. I felt that there was a kind of a weightiness to it, not just to go, wow, they have done this great work and I need to measure up, but I felt like they have done this public service. They all do something slightly different. They've left their legacy, they've left their gift, but in every instance, they've also left this trail of people who keep going, oh, poetry's for me. Poetry's for me too. I am super excited about the new Poet Laureate of Calgary, whose name I cannot drop, but from whom I've already learned. And so I think it is just reciprocity. It's like I will learn from that person and they will leave a legacy in the liveness, I think. And that's maybe a bit of a teaser, but in the live, now that we're returning to live again, crack philosophy to find that you are the missing link in the great chain of being, and thinking that can just be too much. And if so, then just run, don't walk, to the librarians, these calm and lethal women fomenting rebellion in the stacks.
Thank you for helping me to reevaluate what libraries can be. Because we do know that it's a space that people come to regularly and they don't have to use money. very open and unscheduled for some things. So if you want to come into a library, you can, and you don't have to bring anything here, and you can take something home.
Oh, that's so true. One of my big missions as both Poet Laureate and as prof is to go, this is your space. And if this does not feel like your space, how do we change it? How do we change it? And who are the allies in that? The librarians themselves. They're, they are quite often, and folks in library studies fascinate me because they are wanting to make this the public square. And they've been sending that message. They're like, the library shouldn't be quiet. Like, we're in here right now. We're not like, shh. We're going like, read this damn book. You know? Yeah. Here is where all those worlds we have yet to know come to multiply and divide. Then, now, and evermore. And so run with me. Want to? Run. Don't walk. To the stacks.
What do you get when you mash up the words poet and MC? You get PoeMC, otherwise known as Wakefield Brewster, one of our city's most dynamic spoken word artists, who wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for poetry.
Back in my day, we had people who were poets. We had people who were rappers, MCs. Then we had people who could do both. Not every rapper can write poetry and deliver poetry in a way that doesn't sound like verse rap. Not every poet can rap. A lot of poets can't. So a PoeMC is someone who has the ability to do both separately or even in the same piece, or blend it together, which is more or less what I've done. And I believe that's what makes my poetry exciting and engaging. I never chose to be a poet. I fully believe poetry chose me. I've lived a life of some pretty heavy personal struggle with addiction and alcoholism. I had some bad traumas that happened at age 8, and that's when I discovered alcohol. But I can tell you it was my own personal holocaust that I just recently got out of 5.5 years ago. When I look backwards at all the struggle I've had in my personal life, never had struggle in the arts. Poetry was always easy. It was always a comfort, it was always a hug, a cloak, it was always something warm. It literally saved my life, and now it's given me this life. It got me and brought me out of addiction and alcoholism, and now my life has begun to flourish, and I can spread a message that words possess wellness. Calgary now has a reputation of being one of Canada's cultural capitals. It is now becoming a poetic capital of Canada. We are a respected community. We're no longer this country bumpkin backwoods cowtown team. We're just growing and loving that we're one of the cities that are promoting and spreading the message that poetry is powerful and that it is for the people. This poem is titled, I Can. After a decade of delivery on the MIC, unbelievably, people still asking me, what can you do with poetry? That question used to make me angry. It used to get me hot. Now I tell them have a seat and ask them how much time they got. For you see, with poetry, I can. Duly dance down those same halls of learning where I once had the yearning to be a well-accomplished human with a 4.0. But my GPA was sadly way far below. I never got the knack of the educational flow. They made me sit still, so I stood still. I can confidently, comfortably cruise into classrooms where I was once coerced to create a captured, cornered mental state so I could clearly create a way to hate my own mind by my educators. They were educators. They formed a form to form my formative years, tainted with intolerance and a tidal wave of tears that sailed all of my dreams away from me. For they likened my self-image with one of stupidity. It was all that I heard and all that I could see. I can now be free.
And that's just a brief glance at what makes our city famous for poetry and spoken word. See you next time on Living a Creative Life.